I'm so excited to be with all of you today. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are in the world. Go ahead and let us know where you are. You can try it in type it into the chat. I'm Liz Ngonzi. I'm based in New York City, but I'm originally from Uganda. And I love doing this. I love resourcing people like you who are out there making the world better, right? And whichever part of the world you're in. And this webinar is really designed in such a way as to provide you with practical tips, access to information, and tools that can help you to do what you have to do even more effectively and more efficiently. I am an adjunct assistant professor of fundraising at New York University. I've been teaching this for a very, very long time, and so you're in good hands. I'm also the founder and CEO of the International Social Impact Institute, which I started in 2020 specifically to work with organizations such as yours, leaders such as yourselves, to provide you with knowledge with access to knowledge, networks, and resources to help you to do your job better. And so let's go ahead and start. We've got a lot going on. I'm going to make this as interactive as possible. And folks, my co-captain Ludmila is going to be chatting. She's going to be typing in any resources that are available to her. If you have any questions, you can always chat to her. But I want to make sure that you understand that we're providing the resources to you so you can use them, and making this as interactive as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a question for all of you. And Yesenia, please confirm that you can see my presentation. Okay, so what is the hardest part of applying for grants? And I want you to go ahead and type your answer in the Zoom chat. So what are the challenges that you face when you're trying to apply for grants? Is it that, maybe you don't know where to apply? Is it that maybe you don't know how to talk about your organization? Is it that sometimes people feel like, well, we don't want to beg, right? Because there's this mentality about that. What is it that you find as the biggest challenges? Because I really want to understand what that is so that I can try to help you. So the chat is disabled, so if someone can enable it, that'd be great. So we have, let's see, when their answer is no. Well, no just means, so if you do get a no, and this is coming from Angela, you have to actually think about potentially asking them why it's a no, right? Because sometimes no means not now. No could mean we need more information, or no could mean maybe there isn't a right fit, right? That maybe what they're trying to fund or what they're interested in is not necessarily aligned with what your organization's all about. So that requires a little bit more research. So don't take the no as a no yet. Always make sure that you ask them how you can improve your process. And in fact, they do appreciate when you do so. Ask people to be your references. Okay, so you're part of Civicus, right? You're part of this network. I highly encourage all of you to type your LinkedIn link for people to connect with you who are part of this webinar, so that then you can expand your network, because Civicus is a really great network to be part of. And if you're looking for references, this is a good place where you can start to develop those connections. But references just really, you can get references from so many different places. It could be references from people who funded you in the past. It could be references from people you worked with. And so I think there are lots of different places where you can get those. The other is that actually locating the grant funds tailored to my activism work. Okay, so this is a good point, and we're going to delve into this, and this great tool that we're going to be able to show you that will help you to actually find the grant opportunities that are aligned with the work that you're doing with your mission, right? Because the alignment is what's really important. I think a lot of times when we apply for grants, we apply because we've heard of Gates Foundation, we've heard of Ford Foundation, and so we think, oh, they have money, let's apply. But that doesn't necessarily mean that their mission and what they fund is aligned with the work that you do. And so that research up front will save you a lot of time. And that's what I'm really hoping to do, is save you time and help you to get closer to a yes. And so that's something that I think is really, really important. And then essay questions and complicated academic forms and proposals. Yeah, so we're going to give you some templates that will help to demystify that, to make that easier for you as you're applying, Ahmed. So I'm glad that we talked about that. And then we have registered organizations only. So I highly encourage you to register as a formal entity in your country, so that then you can have or you can increase the likelihood of qualifying for grant opportunities. But my understanding is that in this directory, there are some organizations that are listed that will fund you even if you're not necessarily a registered entity. And then identifying who or which organization to send a proposal to, fantastic. So I feel like we're all on the same page in terms of the challenges that you face and that what we're going to be sharing with you today. So thank you so very much for going ahead and that. And let me just go ahead and jump into my presentation. So today, the title of this presentation is Improve Your Grant Seeking Strategy. So if that's not what you came for, this is the time when you jump off of the Zoom, but that is what we're going to be covering. And I'm going to share with you a cycle that we've created. It's based on it's adapted from the cycle of donor relations for some of you who may be familiar with it. But this is the International Social Impact Institute cycle of sustainable donor and partner relationships. And I say sustainable because I want you to understand that the relationship with a donor should not just be one time for one gift, but you should try to develop long-term relationships with all of your partners, because that actually works out to your advantage greatly when you have longer-term relationships rather than just once. Okay, and so this particular cycle will help you to improve your grant-seeking strategy, and it has a few steps. And we're going to go through those steps throughout today's presentation so that you'll be fully equipped to do this correctly moving forward. So the first step is identifying potential donors, right? So we're going to be using the tool provided by Civicus to be able to identify potential donors. But when we do that, we also want to confirm that the donor is likely to fund our work, right? And a couple of you mentioned that you know, trying to find that fit between what the funder funds and what your organization's all about. So having that alignment. So you need to confirm that up front. And if you confirm that they're not necessarily not likely to fund your work, this is when you stop and you look for another funder. I don't want you to go ahead and try to fit yourself into something that's not a good fit for your organization. Finally, when you confirm that they're likely to support your work, then you want to be able to contact them to start a mutually beneficial relationship. And what I mean by that is that it's not about you asking for money and then they're just giving it to you. It's that the funder has a mission. They have something they're trying to fulfill. So if you can show that there's an alignment between your work and their work, that is really a good thing. But also that you're creating a relationship that is about mutual benefit. And that's just like even in life, that you don't want to have one-sided relationships. You want to have, you know, relationships that benefit both parties. And then once you do secure the funds, right, you want to do a proposal, you want to secure the funds, and there's a process around that. You want to then show gratitude and report results. So very important. This piece is really key. I think maybe, you know, when we were young, we were taught by our moms or parents. My mom is on here. Hi, Mom. To show gratitude. And so whenever you receive funds or support or any kind of support from your funder, it's really important for you to show gratitude, whether it's in the form of an email or it's in the public, whatever it is that they want you, that's how you want to demonstrate the gratitude. And then of course you need to report results. So how did you use those funds? How did you steward the funds that they provided to your organization? Did you use the funds the way you said you were going to? Because when you do that, those two steps, what you do is you solidify the trust between you and the funder, and you open up the possibility for a second grant or for other grants, or even to be recommended for other grant opportunities, or for them to showcase your organization. Because once you have that, it really goes a long way for the funder to be endorsing the work that you're doing to increase your visibility with other funders. So I just want you to think about that. If you don't remember anything else about the cycle, well, it should be about doing the research up front, but showing that gratitude and reporting on the results is also very key. And of course, focus on your donor's mission. Of course, you're here doing your work, but if you don't understand what the donor is interested in, if you don't understand how to create that alignment, they're never going to fund you. All right, so let's look at today an overview of today's workshop that's designed to help you improve your grant seeking strategy. First, we're going to spend about 10 minutes identifying potential donors, and then we're going to look at spend another 10 minutes confirming whether or not they will fund. And then we will look at how one would go about contacting the donor. Then you have a little bit of a break where during that break, you're going to go and have your coffee or whatever it may be. But you also, I'm going to ask you a question I'm going to ask you a question that I want you to think about during that break. Then when we return, we're going to apply what you've learned, and that will give you an opportunity to figure out how to use the donor finder tool that Civicus has so graciously provided you. And then I'm going to ask you to share about how you will improve your grant seeking as a result of today's workshop. So I want you to think about that, because I'm very results oriented. I'm not just giving you this information. We didn't just create this so that you could think about it. I want you to take an action. I want you to improve what you're doing. Then finally, we're going to give you additional resources that will round out the whole cycle. And then we're going to ask you to stay on to do a very, very brief survey, one question that's very important for us to make sure that this webinar met your expectations. So let's go ahead and start with identifying potential donors, which will help you to improve your grant strategy. We've got the donor finder website, and Ludmila will put a link to today's presentation in the chat, but we'll also provide you some of the links so you can easily find them. So there is the donor finder website. The great thing about this is you can either view it in English or you can translate it into French or Spanish. So for those of you who are any of those Spanish language speakers, you'll be able to access the donor finder website. And then in this whole presentation, anytime you see a square or rectangle like this and a link as well as content, it means you can click to go ahead and find and go to that resource directly. And then of course, once you do that, you'll be able to access the donor finder tool, and we've given you a link to the tool directly. And you can download it. And so this donor finder tool it's a curated list of progressive donors who support activists, civil society organizations, and small informal civil society groups. Okay, it's a great resource. I'm going to walk you through it. So the way that it's organized, right? So the contents, you have a little bit about the directory, how to use it. You have the glossary of key terms, so that if the particular terms you may not be familiar with, they've identified them and provided you with the explanations. And then a list of specific thematic priorities supported by donors in the directory. And then a list of target groups that those donors support. And then we have geographic breakdown. We've got Africa, we've got Asia and the Pacific, we've got Europe, global. So the global are funders who fund across the globe. So they're not necessarily just focused on one particular geography, but it's across the globe. So you're probably going to be looking for funders for a specific geography that you're in, or a region, as well as looking at the ones in the global space. Then you've got Latin America and the Caribbean, you've got Middle East and North Africa, United States, and then of course there's some additional directories of donors and grants for civil society organizations. So how do you use this directory? It's 5 easy steps. The first one is to review the donor profiles listed under the specific region where you work, and also review the donors listed in the global chapter, which is what I shared. You then want to check out which donors align with your needs and work. And then the step 3 is once you spot one of the or more donors that could support your work, use their contact information and visit their website or other online platforms to see specific funding opportunities for which you could apply. And then I love this so much. Sharing is caring. I very much believe in this. Whenever you're given information, you're given a resource, share it with other people in your network who may benefit from it, because this is information that's enabling all of us to be able to do our jobs better, enabling us to be able to impact more lives. And so the more we can get this information out, the better. And then, of course, if you see something in the directory that maybe could be improved, or you might have suggestion in terms of what additional information could be provided, please use the email address located here to send a message indicating what it is that you could improve or they could improve. All right, so let's not look at the glossary of terms. I won't go into each one of them, but basically this one page shows you the different glossary of terms that I encourage you to read before you go into the directory, so that you can at least have an understanding of what a fiscal sponsor means, or what a published call is, or what rapid response funding is. Okay. So here are the areas, the thematic priorities that are supported by the donors that are listed in the directory. So we've got civil society action. So within civil society action, it could include activism, it could include civil society strengthening, it could be leadership development, right? Or security and protection. When we look at economic, social, and cultural rights, that would be related to anti-discrimination, it could be human rights, it could be looking at LGBTQI rights, women's rights, right? So those are those thematic areas. When we look at peace, justice, and strong institutions, we've got democratic practices, judicial institutions, it could be state violence, it could be transparency and accountability. And then when we go to civil and political rights, we have access to information, we've got freedom of expression, we've got media freedoms, voting rights, so you see the categories. And then we move on to essential services, which would be related to like child and elder care. It could be education, food security, health, water and sanitation, so WASH, right? And then those of you who are working in the socioeconomic and sustainable development space, it could be community development, it could be climate change, it could be environmental protections, poverty, social entrepreneurship. So those are the thematic priorities. So if you can look at what those look like, then you'll be able to determine whether you fall into your organization falls into one or several of these different categories, and it'll help you to determine which donors might be interested in working with you. And the next is the list of target groups that are supported by the donors in the directory. So it might be, they're looking to support activists and groups focused on sexual and reproductive rights. It could be organizations that are maybe looking at human rights offenders. It could be women's rights offenders, youth activists. So you'll be able to they'll list the different target groups when we get into the section where I'm going to actually show you a profile of a funder. So these are the different target groups that you may fall into. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to use Donor Finder to research a potential global donor, because I think if I use this example, it will apply to quite a number of you versus me specifically looking at one geography or one country. So we would go into the global section of the directory. And I've chosen a funder with which I'm actually familiar, and this is an example we're going to use, and it's the Mott Foundation. And the Mott Foundation is a US-based foundation. And what you would find at this point is you would see, it tells you a little bit about them, right? So this is maybe like a summary of who they are. In this case, it says that Charles Stewart Mott Foundation affirms its founder's vision of a world in which each of us is in partnership with the rest of the human race, where each individual's quality of life is connected to the well-being of the community, both locally and globally, right? So it gives you sort of an idea of what they're interested in. If they were health-oriented, that about section would talk about health. And then it kind of also outlines the kind of support that they provide. So in this case, they provide financial support, and it's core or flexible funding. And core and flexible funding is actually a term that is included in the glossary. So you would check that out to see what that means. And then they also do project funding. So what that basically means is they fund you for kind of the kind of items that you need to be able to run your organization, as well as for specific projects. And they fund at amounts of $50,000 or more. And then in terms of non-financial, they don't specify, but sometimes you might find a funder that doesn't necessarily give you financial support, but maybe they give you non-financial, so they may donate items or the like to you. So that's the part of researching a potential donor, okay? We're now going to look at confirming if that donor will find. So we're in that next step of the cycle that I shared with you. And so we look at the next part of this page. And so they show you the focus areas, right? So it would be thematic, thematic and then target groups. So remember I showed you the themes before. So you would see if any of these themes fit with themes related to your organization, and then the target groups that are related to your organization as well. And then geographic coverage. Here it happens to be global, but in the case of if a specific geography, they would indicate the countries that they support. And then they would show you who can apply, right? In this case, they only fund registered organizations. I know that there was a question about, or there was someone who mentioned that a frustration they have is in receiving funding as a non-registered entity or non-registered organization. And so you'll be able to see if there are any organizations on this list that actually do apply, do fund, or if you're not necessarily a registered organization. And then they also indicate to you how you can apply, right? And so here it says they mostly work with partner organizations, right? So they work with organizations that are existing in their network, but then they do on a limited basis allow unsolicited proposals, right? And that's a term you can see in the glossary, but basically what they're saying is that in some instances, they're willing to consider you if you write to them and you present a case that's that is compelling and that is aligned with the work that they do. And then of course you have their contact details. You've got the website here, you've got a telephone number you can contact. They happen to have a letter of inquiry form, which you're not necessarily always going to get, but this is for unsolicited funding opportunities. So this is where you would get the contact details, and then you would go to the website or whatever platform that they've provided to you. Let's go to their website. So I've gone ahead and taken to their website. And on the website, they actually have a very well laid out website. They would have who we are, what we do, grants database, and then news. Okay, so I'm going to just tell you this. If you do decide to go ahead and submit a letter of inquiry, I highly recommend that you sign up for their newsletter, because you want to, applying for a grant takes about 1800 months in general. So it's good for you to sort of start receiving their newsletters to understand what they're all about, to even learn about any opportunities, grant opportunities they may publicize through their newsletter, but it also shows that you're already interested in them, right? And so that's something I want you to do. And so that's where we start. The next thing I want you to do is look at this page. Who we are is going to be very important on every website, because it tells you what they believe in, so their guiding principles. It tells you a little bit of the history and their founder, their foundation timeline, so over the period of time that they've been in existence, what they've done, like maybe key milestones. Then they show you their trustees and staff, very, very important, because you want to know who's behind this organization. It may turn out that you know someone there. And that makes a very big difference when you're writing the letter to them. Annual reports will give you information about, just kind of what they're doing. It'll show you what they've supported, what their priorities are. Financial information will give you an understanding of the size of the organization. And then if you're applying for a job or want to just contact them, okay? And of course, if you were to be interested in checking out this website, we have a link to the source for this content. Now, if you're not necessarily an English speaker, you can translate the website using Google Chrome if you're using Chrome as your browser. So you'd be able to use this link to be able to do so. Let's now go to the next section that's really important. It's information for grants. And I want to be clear that not every funder is going to have a website that is this well laid out, but what you want to do is try to find that information. So here they've done a really great job under what we do to list information for grants, grant seekers, okay? And so they list the kind of programs that you would want to see. Are you civil society, or education, are you environment? You're probably not going to be a Flint area, because Flint is a part of the U.S. and I don't think you are U.S. organizations, and so they would be funding. And then they also show you what they do not fund. They do not no grants to or loans to individuals. So you must be a registered entity in your organization in order to be able to receive funding from them. Okay. On the trustees and staff page, they would list the trustees up here, and they'd list the staff. And I highlight this for you because I want you to, not only as the organization leader or organization staff that's doing this work, to look at this. I want you to share this with your board members and other people, other stakeholders who are connected to you, to see if maybe they know someone. Why I say that is because if you're going to be writing a letter, if you're going to be reaching out to them, it increases your likelihood for success if you're writing to a person who has a connection to you, or if someone in your network, maybe your board member, is actually writing on your behalf, because we respond to people we know. It's just that really fundamental. So I want you to spend a little bit of time getting to know the staff, and there's that. Then the next thing that I want you to look at is the grants database. Now, not every organization is going to be this well organized and share this with you, but in the case where you do see the grants database, I want you to learn how to navigate this one. So the first thing you do is do location. I use Uganda because I'm from Uganda. So you'll be able to select from the drop-down menu different locations they have. And then you'd want to select which program you want them to provide you information about. So it could be civil society, and within that, it could be enhancing community philanthropy, increasing access to justice, whatever it is the categories are that are relevant to you. You may want to know the amount of the grants that they've given, and then maybe the period during which those grants were made. And then what it gives you is a bunch of results. And so what you'd say is expanding civic space in East and Southern Africa, and they received $200,000. It tells you that this was in Kampala, Uganda. The grant period was a 2-year period, and the program is civil society, and it was looking at strengthening civic space. Why you want to know this is because if I were you, and I would click, well, you can't click, but I would copy the name of the organization and go ahead and search for it and go to its website to try to see if you could learn more about them, because you know that they've received funding. They've been successful in receiving funding from this grant maker. And so it tells you that you may want to see what they've done and what they're all about, to see if maybe they may be even able to give you some pointers or some information about how you too can be successful, right? And so that's why you'd want to go here and see who else has been able to receive funding that's similar to your organization. And they could even help you with the process that you're going to go through. So now that we've done that, we've confirmed if the donor will fund, I want to show you, spend the next few minutes going into contacting the donor, and then you'll have a bit of a break. I can't believe we're already at the break. It's pretty amazing. So you're going to use LinkedIn, and I love LinkedIn because it's a really great place, not only for how most people use it, and that's because they're trying to find a job, but it's a great place to research and potentially contact donor employees. And so why I want you to think about LinkedIn is that only 10% of foundations in the US have actual websites, and around the world it's even fewer. And so LinkedIn is typically where they might have a presence. They may have a page that you could actually navigate if they didn't have a website, but it's also a place where you can get to know who the people are in that organization that might be connected to you or to people in your network, so that helps to facilitate contacting them. All right, so let me lay this out for you. When you get to their LinkedIn page, the most important thing you want to see is, first of all, you want to follow it so that you can, show that you're interested in them. And then you can click on the people part of the page. And here it shows you that they have 95 employees on LinkedIn. And then you can go ahead and use the search bar to search in this number of ways. So you could, maybe if you know there's a specific person's name, you can look up that person's name. It may be that you may have found on their website, and that will help you to see if you know anyone in common with them. Or it might be that you're saying, I want to know everyone who has the title grants in their name. Or maybe you're like, I want to see people who went to a specific school. You could do that. But LinkedIn also gives you the ability to see where they live, where they are. It's not really live, it's where they are geographically, and you'd be able to click and see that the 72 people who are located in the US. So that would give you a listing of them, or where they studied. Why do you care about where they studied? Well, let's say if you wanted to reach out to them, you might be able to say, oh, I see that we both went to such and such school. We both have an interest in this area. I thought I would reach out to you so we could connect, right? So that you're making a connection between the two of you. If you were to go further down on the page, what you would then go to is see just a whole listing just of all of the employees. And I want you to understand how to read this. So it says people you may know, right? So in some instances, if I'm directly connected to somebody from this organization, it would show me that we were first connection. Here, by saying it's second connection, it means that I have someone in common with them, or maybe we belong to the same group, or maybe we're both alumni of the same place, or something like that. So you want to try to find people who are either first or second level connections to you, because there's a likelihood that you have something in common. If you go to third and anything higher, most likely you're not connected. You don't have a place of connection that would help facilitate an introduction. if you see here in this particular case of this Robert Dumley, we have about 16 connections in common. So I would click on his profile and I'd be able to see the people we have in common. And I could say, oh, okay, Matthew. I could write to Matthew and say, hey, Matthew, for Connect. I'd say, can you tell me a little bit about Robert Dumley, and would it be possible for you to maybe consider introducing me to that person? So that is the benefit of this particular page. Ludmilla is texting me, so I just have to see. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, so that's what happens in this section. So now let's look at writing a letter of inquiry after you confirm the donor is likely to fund your work. And this happens to be that Mott provides you with this. It's not necessarily going to be the case on every website you go to. It's important that you've done your research before you get here, right? That you understand the specific program area that you're going to be applying for. And it tells you that once you submit your letter of inquiry, that you'll hear from them within 90 days. So just it sets your expectations about what you can expect. Next is if they don't actually have a letter of inquiry template that you can, or a form that you can fill out, I've given you a resource to help you write a letter of inquiry from another awesome partner of ours, which is Candid. Candid has really great resources for folks like you to use to be able to connect with your supporters more effectively. If you happen to be speaking Spanish speaking, they enable you to translate this into Spanish. And so the letters of inquiry, once you can download them, they're free. You can customize them for whatever purpose that you need. But what's even more important is that if you download them, download the letter, and you want to translate it, you can go ahead and use Google Translate to translate that letter into your language. Okay, so I'm going to now give you a break. But during the break, I'm going to ask you to do something for me. I'm going to ask you to think about what questions you have, what questions you have about Donor Finder based on the time we've just spent together, so that I can answer them for you. And you can go ahead and write them in the chat. And when we get back together, I will answer them for you. For those of you who are not going to take a 10-minute break, I'll be here. So I'm happy to answer any questions that are coming in through the chat. And I go ahead and start again, Yesenia, or do we need to wait for the interpreters to come back?
No, I think we can start. We're ready.
Okay, awesome, amazing. I'm so excited about how incredible this, like the activity has been in the chat. Thank you everyone for your interactivity. So we're going to spend about 25 minutes applying what you've learned at this point. But before we go ahead and give you the little assignment, I want to know what questions you have about Donor Finder. This is your time to ask the questions about it. Let me see if anyone asked. Okay, so we saw some people from Malawi, Somalia. How are you? From Somalia, Niger. And okay, active organizations. Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but someone asked a question about the Donor Finder that I saw, and I think it would be, I can
please go ahead. Yes, please go
Karen.
ahead.
Yeah, Karen saying that there are not enough donors listed in the region where she lives. I think it's the Caribbean.
Okay.
And yeah, so I just wanted to say that we don't have a huge list of donors. We have like around, I don't know, like 70 something profiles. Right. And maybe you won't find like a huge number of donors as specific to your country, to your region, right? Right. But in that case, what you can do is go and check the global.
Exactly.
Because even if you don't see, a section of donors that provide funding specifically for the Caribbean or specifically for these other region, in the global section, donors listed, they provide support around the world. So most likely, they would fund people in Latin America and the Caribbean, or just in the Caribbean. So, or sometimes they provide, for example, they say French-speaking countries, and that can be anywhere around the world.
Right.
Like Africa, Francophone Africa, Francophone Latin America, so some countries in the Caribbean. So go and check out the different, the different sections. And also, we don't have a huge number of donors because we have done a very detailed work of reaching out to every donor listed in the directory to be sure that their information is accurate and that these donors want to be listed in this directory. That means that these are donors that most likely will be responsive if you send emails, if you send, if you reach out. It's not that we just decided to list people and we don't even know if they're going to be replying to your questions or like receiving your requests, your applications. So it's not a huge list, but it's a high quality list. And yes, so
I think that's a good point. I really definitely feel that the global section will be of help. But here's where I'm going to challenge you. We have 100 and something 70 people on this call, on this webinar. Someone who has Caribbean connections or knows where their Caribbean funders, please go ahead and give the link. Let's share. This is a community that we're creating here. If you know of a place where we can source Caribbean funders, please put the link in so that the person who asked that question will be able to access it, right? Why not, Karen? I mean, why not? I want to go ahead and just touch on something. I mentioned earlier that about reaching out to trustees and staff organizations. And I want to be really careful about that for you. I don't want you just randomly reaching out to people. That's not what it is, because sometimes foundations may feel like there's a conflict of interest in doing that. But but by having you look up who works there, I'm giving you an opportunity to maybe find out from your own network, if you know anyone there, because it just gives you more additional information so that maybe they could even let you know that maybe it's a kind of organization you can't reach out to, but your contact may be able to inform you about whether or not that they'd be open to speaking to you. It's just additional information that we're giving you. That's it. And I don't encourage you to reach out randomly. I don't want you to do anything randomly. This whole process, I'm hoping you're going to learn that it's important to do the research. It's important for you to follow the directions they give you, and kind of go from there. So I really want to make sure we're really clear about that. Okay, so let me go ahead and move on to that. I think I've answered that. Are there any other ones? Okay, I think people are just listing. I love this. People are just sharing their contact details, which is great. Connect away. I see some people from Bosnia and Herzegovina. How are you? Nice to welcome you. Let me go ahead and move on because I've been told that I've got to move on. Okay.
Please, so, you have 1 second more for some. I saw another. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I saw another comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I saw another comment. And this person was asking if they can find someone who funds art, like artivism, to support children. And I was saying in the directory, that's why there's a list of, thematic priorities and groups. So when you go and check the profiles of the donors, see if they fund organizations or activities that are working to support children. And if one of the things that they support is art, right? Mm-hmm. And they might support different things, art or just protest or, these different things. But that's why it's very important that you check these. When you check up the donor profile, check if they support what kind of activities or thematic priorities and what groups they support. Because they might support, let's say, art, but only, women's groups. So that means they don't support kids, right? So if you're an organization supporting children, don't apply to that donor. But if you see that they do support art in one of the thematic priorities that they have listed, and in the groups, they support children and they support other groups, but children is listed there. So do reach out to that donor. So definitely go and be, very detailed in checking these different sections in the donor profiles.
Right, absolutely. Okay, so I see some people have been writing questions in the Q&A, and forgive me, I was looking just in the chat. I'll have to kind of catch up after on that, but thank you for clarifying that. And we're going to move on to the next piece where we're going to do some activities, okay? And I'm going to keep us on this slide and I'll be able to answer questions that are coming in, but we're going to do the 3 activities, 2 that you'll do today, 1 that you'll do at home. that are designed to help you improve your grant seeking strategy. So the first one is going to be about 5 minutes. And I want you to use Donor Finder to find, to identify a potential donor, right? So, so for the person in the Caribbean, look at the global list. For folks who are looking for artivism, look for within your geography and also the global list to see if there's someone there that might potentially support the work that your organization does. The next step, which is going to take about 10 minutes, is we're going to confirm that the donor is likely to fund your work, right? And so we're going to go through the process that I showed you when we went through the Mott Foundation's page. But I'm going to show you 3 things I want you to take into consideration when you're looking at whether they'll fund you. One, they're interested in your cause, meaning that there's an alignment between your mission, their mission, and what your organization does, right? If there isn't that, then we move on to someone else, right? The second thing you want to make sure is that their funding timeline matches your needs. So if, let's say, they're, want to do research that you find that, oh, actually they maybe they make their funding decisions in January, and here we are in April. Well, you may want to maybe you put that funder maybe like you can put that like on the side, and then find someone who might be funding at this point, or a process that you can get into. So that's something you want to consider. And then the third thing I want you to consider is that they accept unsolicited requests. Do not write to any organization that says to you they don't accept unsolicited requests, because they won't respond to you. And so I want to make sure that you do those 3 things, that you figure those out. And then finally, what I want you to do on your own is homework. Now, I'm a professor. I told you I'm a professor, so I'm going to give you homework. And I want to see that if the potential donor meets all 3 of the criteria we talked about, then you can contact them to begin a mutually beneficial relationship, right? Whether it's that donor inquiry, that inquiry form that we saw with the Mott Foundation, or whatever other way the foundation tells you to contact them. And if it's a no, you start the process over and find another donor. And why this is so important is I don't want you wasting your time reaching out, doing all this stuff with a donor that's never going to you're not going to be qualified for, that's never going to support you. You don't, many of your smaller organizations, you may even be individuals, and you just don't have the time to waste. I want you to be efficient. Like, do the research up front, qualify everything up front to determine whether or not you move forward. And if you get to a no, you move on to the next one. And that's the beauty of having a directory like this that has additional resources for you to access. So I'm going to hang out on here. I'm going to give you a few minutes to go ahead and search the Donor Finder tool to identify a potential donor. Ludmila, for those people who are joining us late, can you just go ahead and share the Donor Finder link again so that they can go ahead and access this tool on their own, and they can do the research. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to research that, and then we'll get to step 2, where you're going to then, I want you to go ahead and review and see whether or not they're actually interested in the kind of work that you're doing, and that they take unsolicited requests. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and look at the chats to see if there's anything that I can answer as you're doing this process. So let's see. So Ludmila just shared the Donor Finder link with you. And then let's see. Okay, Senia put something in the chat for you that's helpful. Okay, so Yesenia, someone asked this question, and I don't know how to answer this, so I think I'm going to just ask it to you. They want to know about donors that are willing to work with countries, under sanctioned countries, and non-registered organizations. So the non-registered organizations, there's some funders that we know that will fund, but how about non-sanctioned countries?
Thanks, Liz. I actually sent a private chat to that person.
But sorry. Okay.
I think it's useful. It's very important that you check, right, in the profile. Do they support non-registered organizations, individuals, right? In the Donor Finder, you can see that. Then you can see in the geographic coverage, you can see, well, is my country listed in there, right? In the donor, is they, if they're saying Europe, only these countries, or not these countries. So sometimes it is specified in the profile, and if you see that your country is not there, well, maybe don't reach out to that donor, or maybe it's still, if you say like, oh, it says all the region, but my country is sanctioned, well, maybe send an email and ask the question directly, right? If it's not 100% clear to you, or check their website.
Right.
And also we have, and I was telling this person that we have the new rapid response donor finder, which is it's a second directory that features support mechanisms for emergency situations, people who are facing attacks, like they need resources like more quickly. And usually these kind of mechanisms or funds or, funders, donors, they support people that are in countries that are vulnerable, sanctioned, because they're trying to provide support to people who need it in very difficult situations, right? In very difficult contexts, in countries where things are, more restricted and more difficult. So I will suggest, if you are in a country with a more complicated context, also check out the Rapid Response Donor Finder, because you can find donors that are working in this context even more. Like check both directories, but in that directory you will find donors that are working, in more complicated situations, causes, and also countries.
Yes, absolutely. So someone was asking a question about how to write an introductory email to a donor or potential partner. They want to know if this address, we did address it, but I will bring it up again. We provided you with a resource with templates, letters of inquiry that you can access. And Ludmila, if you can just go ahead and put that in the chat again for them, the letters of inquiry. They'll be able to access that. That's the candid resource that we had that I mentioned earlier. But you also will be getting this presentation, everybody, so you can also pull it from that. But we did provide you with sample letters that you can use to write your letter of introduction to this potential partner. Someone's asking where you can download the Spanish version, and that goes, if you go back to the website like we showed you. Okay, I'm actually, let me stop sharing my page, my sharing this for a second, Yesenia, and I'm going to go into Donor Finder, because I think I feel like I need to kind of go back for folks because I think that maybe some people join us a little bit late. Okay, so if you go into Donor Finder, so the person who asked about the language, here's the language here. You can click here to choose the language that you want it in. So if you want it in French, it comes in French. If you want it in Spanish, it comes in Spanish. And then of course, I'm in English. And then if you continue going, so this is the site. So then we go here and you would download Donor Finder. And in the directory is all sort of the information that you need. So it's that easy to access this. It's really not that difficult to navigate. But I just wanted to address the person who has a question about having it in different languages. And then someone else asked a question about the recording. Yes, you will be receiving a recording of this. And let me see what else is being written. Yes, the recording, connect. Okay, I think we covered all the different, let's see, there's a message that's coming in. Oh. Okay, so Ludmila just shared the resource to help you write the letters of inquiry, and that's from Candid. And I think that, Yesenia, is there anything I should also be thinking about to help people kind of navigate this a little bit better?
No, I think you can go back to the landing page and show both directories maybe, and so
right, but we're going to go into the rapid
right there.
Yeah, so you scroll down, you'll see the rapid response, which we also give you in the additional resources page. And this is brand new. It's a directory that lists rapid response mechanisms providing timely support to activists, civil society organizations, and small informal civil society groups. Civil society organizations, small informal civil society groups, response to attacks, sudden emergencies, crises, or advocacy opportunities, and to avoid and mitigate threats, right? So if you're in crisis, this is where you want to go to. And they're simple, so I guess they're not as complete as in depth as the original donor finder, but they are complete profiles and help you identify donors around the world who align with your work and the needs. And again, they're available in French, Spanish, and English. So if you want to activate the other language version of this, you would just go there and then you would pull up the version that you would download in the language that you want it in. Okay. All right. Okay. So I think I just clicked on something that I didn't need to. Okay. So I'm more concerned why most of the rapid response funds are accepted through referrals. Maybe you can go ahead and answer that, Yesenia.
Yes, well, I don't have the exact answer,
Yeah, I don't either, right?
Because, it really depends on the donor, and not all donors that support rapid response do it through referrals. That's not always the case. In some cases, yes. And in some cases, the reason why donors do this is to be able to respond actually very, very rapidly. Because, you can request emergency support, for example. And so you need something, like, I don't know, sometimes donors provide support in 24 hours, like that quickly, right? But still they need to check that your request is true, that you're an activist, that you're in danger, that you're actually doing this kind of support and supporting communities, So all these, sometimes they are able to respond faster if there is someone who can, provide a referral to say, like, yes, I do know these activists, they work in this community. So it's just sometimes, I'm not saying every time, but sometimes it just helps the funder, the support mechanism, to be able to prove that you are actually like an activist or an organization, or like doing this work, that you're really facing an emergency or a threat, a crisis, an advocacy opportunity, and that they can provide this support faster. So sometimes the referral allows for that very, quick response. But sometimes, even in this rapid response directory, some donors don't provide that, support so quickly, not 24 hours. Sometimes it's a week, 2 weeks. And usually these donors are more willing to receive applications without referrals, because they will have the time to go and do a little bit of, background checks, right? And they will have their own partners who can go and check if this is, a true request, like an authentic need, right? But I think, as I'm telling, this is not the answer of why all donors do it. Not all donors do it. Some donors do it because of that. But I think, Liz, this is also, like you were saying, how important it is for organizations, activists, to have networks, right?
Yes,
so
very much.
invest
Very
in your
important.
networks. Right.
Yeah.
Invest in networks, in knowing people who know the work you do, who, like, etc. Because it will, like, if people are able to say, like, yes, the work that they are doing is real, right? Even in the case of an emergency, a referral like this, this person can help provide a referral. So, like, creating networks is also part of the grant seeking journey, and it's important. So it just backed up your point, Liz.
Yeah, no, that's great. So a couple of things came in before I want to move on to the next section. So someone said that they asked if rapid response is given to individual activists, and it is. If you see here, we indicated that it was the timely support for activists, civil society organizations, and small informal civil society groups. Okay, so that answers your question. And then someone else mentioned that they asked if the directory is live enough for requests to be searched directly and not have to go through the entire pages every time, like it is on Funds for NGO platform. No, but this isn't a really big directory. This is, the thing is that you're not trying to, even though it has different sections, right? You're not necessarily going to you're only going to look in Africa if that's where you're located. You don't necessarily have to go through all the things. So I think it's short of enough of a directory that you can actually navigate through it. So I think it's quite accessible for folks to be able to use. And you know what? You're looking for funding, so you got to do the work. Right? You got to do the research. It's just what I mean. This is a great tool that you've been given. I think it's a really extraordinary tool, and it's very focused, so that I think it's worth a few more minutes that you might have to go through to be able to navigate through it. Okay. Let me go ahead and go back to where I was.
28.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so we spent some time doing that, and then I just want you to, again, on your own, sort of figure out if you've been able to find a funder or a donor within the directory that you know, could be aligned with the work that you're doing, and so that you could reach out to them. And then when you're on your own, you'd be able to go ahead and start the process of reaching out to them through a letter of inquiry, maybe using the templates that we shared with you, or if they have a form that you can fill on their website. Yesenia, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Is it valuable for them to have you in their network? All of these people on this call.
Well, you know, I have, well, yes, you can always reach out to, you know, like accept anyone in LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, yes.
But also we provide that email, you know, and we receive you know, we receive questions and emails from anybody, like, you know, like if you have a question about anything, you can also email us, you know, or find me on LinkedIn. But, you know, like also just send an email with your questions. If you have any questions about how to use the directory, if you have any questions, like I don't have direct relationships with donors, and I probably cannot contact you with someone who is going to provide you with resources, but I can definitely you know, like we can, like the donor finder, we did this tool to be sure that people have tools to
Yes.
you know, improve their fundraising and resource mobilization journey. So I guess I will be more useful in case you want to understand better how to use the directory, right?
Right.
Or other opportunities like that.
Yes.
And maybe not to like be sure that I'll give you money or find someone who's giving you money. I don't think so.
Okay. So, okay, no problem. And then of course, can you just also, for folks who are not that familiar with Civicus, can you also explain the network of Civicus? Like what opportunities are there so they can maybe even learn more about how to get involved?
Yes, actually, well, Civicus is a global alliance of civil society organizations, and we do very different things. We support, you know, activists and organizations that are working in, you know, like civil society activists and organizations that are doing a variety of activities around the world, but mostly, you know, like we do a lot of advocacy. So we support with advocacy. In my case, I work with the resourcing team, and we do this advocacy with donors so that they understand what are the needs, the different needs of activists and groups around the world in terms of funding, and how they can improve their practices, right, to be more accessible to activists and groups. But we have, you know, different groups working with youth, for example. We have two small funds that provide small grants like once or twice a year. So, you know, like there's like, I could not be able to explain everything.
No, sure.
But you know, like there's different opportunities that you can you know, check our newsletter and sign up, you know, to our newsletter to receive the different engagement opportunities, but also resourcing opportunities, like this one, like a learning opportunity. So we provide these different activities, engagement opportunities. Sometimes we have groups that help us co-create projects or initiatives or something, you know, for one of our projects. So there are different engagement opportunities. There are different opportunities that we list sometimes, like funding opportunities. We put them in the newsletter. So what I would suggest—
Newsletter.
In the newsletter, yes. So
you can sign up for your newsletter.
For the newsletter, and also become a member, and just also, you know, check out our website. As Liz was saying, sometimes you have to go to the websites of people and see what is it that they do, right? And how I can engage with them. Maybe we are not able to give you funds, grants, but maybe we're able to give you a tool like the donor finder. or
Right.
maybe we're able to connect you with a network in the region. Like if you're in Asia, maybe we do know networks in Asia and we can connect you to a bigger network, right? In whatever region you're in. So I will say, you'll register for the newsletter. You can also become a member, which is free. We will share the link again in the chat.
Sure.
So that you can, like you can see what we do. It's what we do is really big, so I cannot explain everything.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It is, yeah, we do a little bit of everything. So I will say go check out our website or social media too, and our newsletter for more information about engagement opportunities and about different resourcing opportunities, education opportunities.
Yes, right, absolutely. In fact, the first time I worked with Civicus was with 10, no, I think it was 12 activists from around the world who were participating in a youth action youth action leadership program. And it was a 12-week program with me where I coached them and trained them on personal branding, leadership, fundraising, and digital storytelling. And so that wasn't necessarily they got cash for that, but they got resource. They were capacity building, right? So that was something that Civicus provided to them. And so there are a lot of different ways that Civicus can connect you. But I've got to tell you that in this work, it's very important to have a network of people who can help support you around resources, can also provide you get to meet people who have maybe gone through things that you've gone through that you may not be familiar with, or even people you can help, right? Because it's also reciprocal. It's not about you always taking, but also what can you give into the network? What can you give to other people? What I want you to think about. Someone was asking about the difference between associate member and associate organization member. And I think maybe that's something they can see on the website, or should we answer that?
I think maybe just check that on the website so that we don't go, we want to.
Yeah, I know, right. Okay. Okay, so and then for point of contact, if people have questions in the future, it's in they have the information on the website for if you want to contact anyone for information. But I also believe Yesenia, you're the person who emailed them, right? So they can respond to you if they have any questions.
I'll put my email here in the chat. So if anybody
comes. Okay, so most important thing to me is, because I'm, like I told you, I'm a professor, I want to know, how are you going to improve your grant seeking strategy as a result of this short workshop, right? We're only together for a very short period of time. You were not in a 7-week course with me. You're in a 90-minute webinar. I want to know what you're going to change. What are you going to do differently? What did you learn that you now will take? You will change how you approach things moving forward. That's what I want to know, because then it'll make me feel that you actually were able to benefit from the content we provided you today. So how will you improve your grant seeking strategy? It could just be one thing. I don't expect you to do a million things. I want you to just do one thing very well, or change one thing as a result of being in this webinar. And I think, okay, so someone wrote, our youth organizations obviously opportunities like this, and today we gain a good experience, which you can apply now. Thanks for your knowledge and sharing. You're very welcome. So insightful, that's wonderful. I want to know the actions. What are you going to change? What are you going to do? I'll improve my research and contact efforts. Love it. Create a LinkedIn profile. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Yes, and connect with me once you create the LinkedIn profile and tell me that this is my brand new LinkedIn profile, and I'll make sure that we do that. I'm going to use the directories to get better matches with donors. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Please do that research, because I don't want you wasting your time writing to an organization that's never going to support you, because you don't have time to waste. Use your time very, very well. Okay, and then I think for me, it is strategic grant seeking to ensure that you have the right prospects rather than groping in the dark. Yes, don't grope in the dark. I never, for instance, knew about the database. We'll use the database, connect with the donors more on LinkedIn. Fantastic. Do a donor background information and design a donor pitching letter. Fantastic. I'm now going to be very open to applications and also enlarge my network. Okay. Sometimes people misunderstood the process. We need to be empowered. Now you are. Using LinkedIn to reach out to donors is brilliant. Love it. Okay. And Brian, the person who's saying to connect with me, please, I want to connect with you. So please go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn. And then thank you for this interesting content communication. All right, someone said implement the letter. You're very welcome. Implement the letters of introduction, requests for information. Perfect. Use LinkedIn for more grant seeking. Okay, that's wonderful. Ludmilla, should I move on to the resources, or do we have time for me to read a couple more? Share this with other local organizations because everyone needs to benefit from this. I love that you said that. Thank you so very much, right? Sharing is caring. Don't just hold this to you, because all of us are in here trying to make the world better. So the more of us who have this information, the more of us who can do better, the better of a world that we're going to live in. And getting it right the first time. Identify correct donors specific to your cause. Time is money. Thank you. I will enhance my work as a supply chain columnist, targeted grant seeking, and I'm opening a LinkedIn account right away. And you know what, when you do, send me a LinkedIn connection. Let me know it's your brand new LinkedIn account. I'm very proud of you for going ahead and making that, taking that step. And we'll teach other grant organizations on effective grant making. I mean, this is fire, right? Isn't this on fire, Yesenia, what people are going to do? I'm so excited.
It is. I'm very excited for everyone.
Yeah, okay. Someone wants a certification, but I don't think that's what we're doing here.
No.
Share the manual. I will use it to pass the information to CBOs in our country in Kenya. I love it. Okay, and you have contact details. So let me move on to the next part of this, which is more resources, right? And then we'll do the survey. Please don't leave before we do the survey. So let me go through this. We have the app, the Rapid Response Donor Finder, which I already showed you, and that's in English, Spanish, and French. So you can click on here to access it, but we also put it in. If you want to learn more from the Institute, you can go to our website. Ludmilla has also given you a link to join our newsletter. But on our website, we have our schedule. So we have everything that we have upcoming and things that we've done before. These are public events. So if you want to attend one of our events, you can. We also have resources. An area that would be of interest is thought leadership, where we have our blogs, blog posts, or summaries of programs that we put on that you can watch videos, you can read about things that are related to your own personal branding as a leader, to your organization's digital storytelling, to your engagement with funders, and just generally resources that can make you more effective in the work that you're doing. And then we have the global youth giving ecosystem that we have taken over now from Candid. It's been around for a while, but we're now the new home of youth giving. And so if you are a youth activist or youth organization, this is the platform you can go to. We will soon have a directory of different grant opportunities and even organizations that you can connect with, like Civicus, that are supporting youth, for you to grow your network. And so go ahead and go to that site and you can sign up. So once we have all the resources available to you, you'll be able to access them. But we also had last August, we hosted the inaugural Youth Living Global Summit, which was I think 9 different talks with world-renowned speakers and some amazing, very young people, talking about things like related to how do you get started as an activist, how do you build your network, how do you raise funds, what are the important things to think about, and it's just really great inspiration. So I encourage you to go ahead and check those out. And if you need to see the sites in your language, you can use Google Chrome. And then we've given you fundraising letters. So if you don't know how to write a fundraising letter for lots of different fundraising purposes, maybe you have an event or whatever it may be, this is a site you can go to, download the free letter templates, and then you can translate them into your language if you need to, using Google Translate. So that's a really great resource that's free. And then if you want to write grant proposals, so if you get to the point of writing the grant proposal, here's something to kind of like answer, how do you write a grant proposal? And then these are sample documents, are very important. You already saw the letter of inquiry, but it has cover letters that you can use to write to the donor. You have proposals, you've got the proposal budgets, and then full proposals. And these are proposals that actually have won. So these are, that they were successful. And again, you can translate these, or if they're in Spanish, if you're Spanish speaking, you can use the Spanish version. And then a month ago, we relaunched my digital storytelling course. So if you are an organization that is trying to tell your organization's story online, this is an excellent course. It's self-paced, it's free. You can do it it's designed to be about 4 hours in total. But if you want to do the 4 hours over a year, you can do it. If you want to do it over a month or one shot, that's up to you. And it teaches you first how to tell a story, and the telling the story will help you with letters, will help you with crafting social media content, e-blasts and things like that, as well as how to tell a story online, how to tell a story using video, and then how to use the different platforms like the social media platforms and like to tell your story effectively with resources directly from like Facebook, from LinkedIn about how to use their platforms. And then finally, I provided you with our digital strategy plan that you can use. It's the templates. We've given you example case studies from one of my students of how to go ahead and create a digital strategy so that then you can communicate strategically online rather than randomly or scattershot. So that's a course you can access, and please share it with other people and let me know what you think of it. And then 4 ways to thank to donors, because that's a place I told you about. These are real simple things. When I used to be the CEO of an organization called Africa Tico, and I was the US CEO, we would have donors who would visit. And so we would either have photographs of them that would put into a collage, or we would do a collage of photos from the projects they were supporting and send it to them in the collage, either printed out and then framed, or now you can use Canva to do a mug, or you could even put this at the top of an email, but at least it's something that they love to feel like it's personalized with their name, but also shows what they're supporting. Another way that you can thank your donor is through personalized video. This is an example of a young woman who was one of 4 beneficiaries who Delta Airlines flew from South Africa to the US for our fundraising activities. So she just recorded this on her phone and we were able to send it. And the guy was so excited to receive a personal message from her. And then we have an example of an email letter or an email that you can just send to thank a donor. And then another way we like to thank is using social media. So you can do a thank you to your donor with whatever image you want and mentioning what you benefited from. So I highly encourage you to thank Civicus for, they're not your donor, but they did donate this. They did provide this resource to you. Share on LinkedIn what you thought about this webinar and how it's helpful to you. Okay, and then finally, the last piece is reporting on your organization's impact. This is a sample donor impact report, and it shows also how to write donors, how to write impact reports for your donors. You can download that resource and you can translate it into another language if you need to. And then finally, we went through the whole process. We started from identifying potential donors. We looked at confirming if your donor is likely to fund your work. We talked about contacting them to develop a mutually beneficial relationship. We talked about, you obtain the funds through the proposal, and then showing gratitude and reporting the results. Most important thing, focus on that donor's mission. I'm not saying that the donor is the most important person, but in any relationship you develop, you always want to understand what the other person or the other party is interested in, so that you can communicate what value you bringing to the table in that relationship. So that's what I want you to remember. And then finally, it seems like some of you got this. Before asking for donations, you should research your prospective donors. This is like preparing for a journey. If you're going on a road trip, it helps to avoid problems and increases your chances for success. So do that research up front and save yourself time. I thank you. We tried to think of all the different languages that we could represented here in the group to thank you for participating today. You gave us your time. Your time is your most valuable resource, and you gave us 90 minutes of it. So thank you very much. And of course, thank you to Yesenia, who invited us today, and Lisa, who recommended us. And of course, thank you to Ludmilla, my co-pilot, who made this possible with me. And we're very excited that you're with us. And now we have the webinar survey. If you can go ahead and Yesenia, I guess you'll take it from here.
Yes, but before we do the survey, before I let you go, Liz.
Yes.
I think
I'm not going.
Yeah, we had all this information, so much, right?
Yes.
You could say right now, like 3 main lessons. And I think one lesson was the last quote that you shared. Research your donors. But maybe from today's class, would you share, I don't know, 3 more main lessons that people definitely need to remember,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Or they go seeking for grants.
Okay, so I'm going to use a quote one of my very favorite quotes from Maya Angelou, the late Dr. Maya Angelou. She says, "People will forget what you did. People will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel." Thanking your donor often and early in every way possible that makes sense to them, right? You need to know what they want, is so important. And we don't do that. It's a basic, it's a fundamental thing you've got to do in any relationship, showing gratitude. Because I can't tell you how many people never say thank you, but it makes a difference because the donor's not just there, they're not just a check to give you money. They're there because they're collaborating with you to make an impact. And so if you can demonstrate the gratitude, it's really, really important. Knowing that you're also the foundation you're working with isn't just the foundation, it's people. So even treating those people well and showing demonstrating gratitude to them. So that's one. The second thing I would say to you is that it's really important to look at resources like this, even if it's not necessarily organized exactly how you want it to be. Take the time to do the research because someone has curated this list for you. So you're highly likely to find a donor that you could potentially write to, could potentially support you here than just having to go on Google and hoping for the best. So take the time to use this tool in the way that it was shown to you. And I would even encourage people to watch this again who may have come late or maybe need to access this again. The third thing I say is share this resource because you see, remember I told you your network is very important to you. Your network isn't just about what you get from people. Your network is what you give to people. So when people see you being a giver and you sharing, guess what? When an opportunity comes up, when they see something, they'll be like, hey, I remember that person helped me. Let me help that organization. Let me help that person. So that sharing is caring is very, very important. Those are the pieces I think I want to share with folks. What do you think, Yesenia?
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. They're great. And I will add one more that we discussed many times when we were preparing this workshop. And we were saying often, it's better that you research your donor, you really understand, you prepare one or two good proposals. You are more likely to be successful than just sending proposals to 100 donors.
Right.
You didn't really understand if they are aligned with the work that you do. You don't really understand that they fund you. They, like you just prepare a proposal and you send it to 100 donors and, try your best. And that doesn't work, right? We said it's better if you send 2, 3, 5, 10 very good, well-developed, thought-out proposals to donors that you really you did the research on them. It's better to just focus on a few proposals, right? Pursue a few grants, than just sending it in our research and see, because we have find out that civil society usually spend a lot of hours, activists, organizations, groups, spend many, many hours sending proposals to everybody, right? Just like thinking, if I send more applications, if I don't even know if I am eligible for this grant, but I send it anyway, right? So you waste time. So take your time, do your research, and it's better if you send just fewer 10 proposals that you know the donor and how they work and everything, than sending 100 that you still wasted time and maybe you're not going to be successful.
Absolutely. And don't waste your time. You don't have time to waste.
Well, thank you, Lise. Now we go. Oh, sorry.
So it looks like people have been writing in the chat, but I think you wanted to do a poll. Is that what this was?
Yes, I want to do, I want to do the poll. Yes, we're 3 minutes late. So I just want you to answer one question, just one click. Sure. And let us know how likely is it that you will recommend this workshop to your friends or colleagues. You're going to see a little pop-up in your screen and just click, 1, 2, 3, it's the least likely, but the numbers after 6 to 10 is the most likely. You will definitely share these with someone. It's a 10. You would never share this workshop with anyone. It's a 1 or a 2. So Amanda, please launch the poll.
Thank you for all the love you're sharing, folks, in the chat. I'm seeing it, and I'm grateful to. I'm giving you a virtual hug, and I'm so grateful that you stayed with us. Thank you for giving me your time, and keep doing what you do. Meaning, keep making the world better, but now do it more efficiently.